Hi, I'm Anne Hogan, Dean of the College of Performing Arts and the Musco Center for the Arts here at Chapman University in Southern California, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Musco Connects, which offers you further ways to connect with the artists and productions that we feature in our Musco Presents season. Now, please keep checking in on us. We're going to be adding new content throughout the year. Today, I'm speaking with three of the most highly regarded artistic directors in the world of contemporary dance. Dwight Rhoden, who is the co-founder and artistic director with Desmond Richardson of Complexions Contemporary Ballet, where he's also the principal choreographer. Janet Eilber, artistic director of the Martha Graham Dance Company, and Michael Novak, artistic director of the Paul Taylor Dance Foundation, home of the Paul Taylor Dance Company. Now, here at the Musco Center, we are over the moon that the three amazing companies that they lead will be performing as part of the Maribel Musco Contemporary Dance Series. And I want to give a special shout out to Maribel Musco, whose passion for dance and generosity have allowed us to present such a really exciting season this year. Complexions is going to be performing on October 18th, Martha Graham Dance Company will be performing on February 11th, and Paul Taylor Dance Company will be performing on March 18th. I hope to see you there. And now, let's go meet Dwight, Janet, and Michael. Hello. Well, I am so privileged to be here today with three of the most renowned artistic directors in the world of dance. We have Dwight Rhoden of Complexions Contemporary Ballet. Hey, Dwight, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. We have Janet Eilber of the Martha Graham Dance Company. Hello, Janet.
Hey, Anne. Great to be with you.
It is. And Michael Novak of Paul Taylor Dance Company. Hey, Michael.
Hello, hello. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this. And I just wanted to tell you all that here at the Musco Center, we are over the moon that all three of your companies are going to be performing in the Maribel Musco Contemporary Dance Series. And oh my God, the feedback that we've been getting is amazing. People are like, you have Complexions and Martha Graham and Paul Taylor. That's amazing. And I'm like, I know. That's amazing. So we are really, really excited about that. And I just wanted to thank all of you. I know how busy you are, so I'm really hugely appreciative of you taking the time to talk to us. Okay, so the theme of our conversation is going to be dance legacies, because you are all not only leaders of three of the most sought after companies, but also the leaders of three of the most long-standing dance companies. And Complexions was founded in 1994. I can't believe that's 31 years ago. Like, I remember 1994 well. That's crazy.
So do I.
Yeah.
Dwight,
you do.
Dwight, you barely make it into the legacy
I
conversation.
know. This is what I'm saying. I'm here with these, what Graham and Taylor. Oh my God.
Well, speaking of Taylor, so Paul Taylor Dance Company was founded in 1954. I don't remember 1954, but that's like a whopping 71 years ago.
71 years old. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We're not where Graham is at.
Yeah.
I'll segue you to the mother of modern dance.
Absolutely. And Martha Graham Dance Company, this is so incredible, is celebrating the 100th anniversary of its founding in 1926. I mean, that is just mind-blowing. But I think that, for all of you, I mean, to just companies that have sustained world-class artistic excellence like that for many, many decades is just really rare and really amazing. So to kind of kickstart our conversation, I have a really huge question for you. And I thought that maybe we can just go around and just, kind of give your initial thoughts about it, and then we can unpack a little bit. And so my question is, how do you honor the founding mission and artistic aims of your companies, while also incorporating current social or artistic movements into your programming? So kind of another way of looking at it would be like, how do you navigate the balance between artistic innovation and audience expectations? And yeah, and I thought maybe we could start with Michael and Janet, because, it's little Dwight was the co-founder of his company, and that in both your cases, you took over from these giants. So thoughts?
I think one of the things I've been thinking a lot about when I think of the word legacy, I think of the word life. And I think of all the complexities that come with life, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the risks, the opportunities, the setbacks, and all of that happening within a current of social, cultural, political, economic, environmental, you know, the waves of change that you go through in life. And legacies, I think, are the art that has sustained and overcome, and in some cases foreshadowed what was coming. And so, when in terms of inheriting Paul's work and creating new work for the future, I'm looking for this balance of the timeless and the timely. And sometimes to understand the present, you do actually have to go to the past and you have to look at it and you have to learn those stories and hear those messages. And sometimes they're very poignant, 70, 80, 100 years later. But sometimes the past also doesn't share every story. And that's why you have to speak to the here and the now, work with choreographers and artists of today so you can capture what is timely in this moment in time. And it's the conversation of those two coming together that I think kind of defines where dance legacy can go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The timeless and the timely. I love that. Janet, 100 years. Wow.
Yeah, well, this is a huge question, Anne, and certainly one that when I came in after Martha's death, after about 15 years after Martha's death, the company really had to take a good hard look at and figure out who we were going to be without this genius leading us. And in brief, we came around to the idea that really the essence, the core value of the Martha Graham Dance Company was innovation, was Martha's appetite for the new, as she called it, for change. So we find that that's a directive for commissioning new work, putting it on stage beside our Graham classics. And the Graham classics resonate with life, as Michael describes it, resonates with the social political consciousness of the time in America when Martha was creating those works. And we found as we commissioned today's choreographers that the American conversation has not changed all that much. Martha was creating works about basic human needs and emotions, and that elemental approach is timeless. It travels through time.
That's great. That's amazing. And yeah, I want to come back to sort of your thoughts and how you're actually putting together the programming for performances and how that factors into. So Dwight, I read that the first performance of your company way back in 1994 was actually, you were thinking of it as more like a one-off for some dancers from lots of different companies and doing your choreography. And so if that's the case, how did you get from there to where you are now, and kind of what are the connections between those moments?
Well, you're right. When we started Complexions, it was an effort for Desmond, who is Desmond Richardson, the co-director of Complexions. He and I just had this appetite for new and collaborative things. We had been in the Ailey company for a number of years, and we were, doing great things, happy really, but wanting to move on and see what the next chapter was. I had had some success with my first ballet on Alvin, so I was just enthralled with choreography, and that's what I said, this is what I want to do. And so when we started the company, it really was just an effort to bring together the worlds of dance, which is still who we are even to this day. But we basically went to our friends from all the major companies that we love in New York and put together a concert. It was supposed to be one time, Symphony Space, 95th and Broadway. It was crazy, beautiful, incredible. It was the spark for who and what we are now. We looked at that stage in our tech rehearsal and we just couldn't believe the collaborations. It's a lot more popular today to have, ballet dancers maybe with a more modern or contemporary dancer. But in 94, there wasn't a whole lot of crossover. We were kind of in our camps and we did what we did. And for Desmond and I, we really wanted to make something that was a reflection of the world around us. So the issues of the day, I just went back and looked at some writing that I did in the beginning, 30 years, and it was about the 90s generation and da la 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 la, you know. And what has happened now is that we really do look at Complexions as a place where we can be an example. There's a message in our company has a message. It's message driven. And that message is unity and love. And I don't want to sound, you know, corny, but I really think it's important. And if we look around the world that we have right now and today, I mean, I think we could all agree that love is always going to help. Unity and also being able to hear each other's ideas. You know, and not necessarily always have to be on board, but there's a way to coexist. And so Complexions to me is that example of where the harmony of the contemporary with the influence of hip hop and classical ballet and all of that together in one place. I never understood why they were so far apart to begin with. But, you know, like after the beauty of all of these forms, I think they're all worthy of our attention in some way. If we're truly present in the world we live in. So that was all
that's
a push, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think what you're all saying and looking back at, you know, the roots from where your work has sprung from. And, you know, because I find a lot, and I'm here at a university and, you know, surrounded by young people, and it can feel like the world is overwhelming and unprecedented, and as if, you know, the things that we're experiencing now are just so unique to this moment, and yet it's really, you know, insightful and kind of inspiring to be able to look back and learn from the journeys and see some of the, you know, the continuity along with the innovation. And so I want to, you know, talk a bit about how you kind of curate the programs, which is really interesting to me, because I was looking at, oh my God, the programs that you've put together for the performances at the Musco Center are just incredible, and very varied and coming from different moments in time. So tell me about that. And I think also, you know, I want to also be thinking about your dancers. And how do you support your dancers to, I mean, Dwight, you mentioned all of those different genres of dance that, you know, that you're all drawing on, but how do they, you know, be able to do those works from, you know, with particular techniques, but also then be, you know, turning around with a new choreographer and new ways of movement. So kind of programming and the dancer's journey through that programming, I guess.
Well, I can start with the dancers. Dancers can do anything, you know, they really can. When we started commissioning new work, probably 12 or 13 years ago, our company only danced the Graham technique and Graham choreography. And the dancers had to really quickly become multilingual and step up and learn the movement that Andonis Phoniadakis was asking them to do, or Sidi Larbi Sherkawi, or Nacho Duato, or Pam Tanowitz. You know, we've worked with a huge range of dance vocabularies, and the dancers just step up. They, you know, they're inspired. They want to do it. I think that's kind of the nature of dancers, that they're looking for they're looking to communicate and express themselves through a physicality that is specific and detailed and expressive, and they've embraced it. I'm really kind of drop-jawed about it. As you know, your question indicates, is how do they do it? Well, they love it and they just do it.
Yeah, and there's such an openness among dancers today. I mean, I'm even thinking of our dance program here at Chapman University, and Dwight, of course, is a professor with us. And I mean, they're just through the day just going, here's a hip hop, here's my contemporary, here's a ballet class, and they, yeah. But Dwight and Michael, what are your thoughts on that? And while the dancers just do it, what are kind of the challenges for them as well, and having to, be involved with programming that's so varied?
Mm. I would say, I mean, I think, so I was in the Paul Taylor company when we shifted from all Paul Taylor all the time into a open repertory model. And it was really, really exciting to have other choreographers coming in to work on us, not just because we were getting to kind of explore a new type of physicality and where it came from within the body, but it also, I think, informed my tailored dancing more. I think it actually fed back into my appreciation of and kind of gave me more colors in my palette in terms of what I could say within the Paul Taylor canon. So it actually helped on both sides of the repertory model. I'll say from a programming standpoint, programming is really complex, actually. I like to collaborate with every venue we go to. I look at our extensive touring history usually. I always try to bring dances that an audience has never seen before from us. So in some venues, if we've been performing there since 1961, 1962, we have an extensive history. So I'm looking at that history. I'm looking at the dancers, kind of where are they at in their artistic journey? Is the company relatively new? Are they more seasoned? Are they more technical? Are they more like acting and more character based? So I'm looking at where their skill sets are and where I'm trying to push them, and then what dances are gonna, move them to that next level. And then I weigh the audience's journey. Is this an audience that knows musical theater but doesn't know ballet, or they only know ballet but they don't know modern dance, or they know contemporary, don't really know what modern dance is at all? So I also kind of take into where the audience is at and how much do I want to push them?
Mhm.
And it all has to come together. And if I do my job right, everyone gets all of their boxes checked. But it's definitely a matrix.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I want to thank all of you for the conversations that we've had about the programming that you've, curated for this. And equally, when I'm looking at, programming overall for the Musco Center, it's like, ooh, I want to push the audience, but if I'm pushing them too much there, are we gonna, yeah, it's a dance, right? It's a dance.
Yeah.
Dwight, what are
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I so agree with Janet and Michael on these dancers today, man. They are just
Unbelievable.
unbelievable and open, like you said, and they just really, for the most part, aren't afraid. And even if it's a style or it's a direction or a role that might be a little bit, new or scary, whatever that is, um, it doesn't take long,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
our language is the movement itself. So that's the way we can get into it. Someone might hear, oh, I'm doing this role, and they get a little tense about it. Learn the movement. It's
yeah.
all the language is, that's where we find each other, right there on the floor through the movement. And also, I do have to say that I find today the dancers do need support, a lot of support from various angles, but even in the studio, the encouragement to say you can do that, or I put you in that place because I know you can. Um, but the dancers today are really, especially young ones coming in, like when they first get into the company, they're just really unbelievable. Usually their energy, their skill set. Now, what we do have to do is fine tune sometimes, offer, a lot of times they come in and they're just red, that's that's
Yeah.
what they do, so the colors, the tones, nuance, and also encouraging them to dig deeper into
Yeah.
who and what they are, because it's so, I take this back to Alvin Ailey. It's You're only as interesting in your work is only as interesting as you as a person invest in your life and the full life that you have. You have to go out, you have to love and lose and experience grief and happiness, and all of those things feed the work and make it richer and more accessible to the audience.
Mm.
And as far as curation goes for programming, I agree with you, Michael. It's the hardest part. It's a big part of the job that we do. And you really, I don't know, I sit with my pad sometimes looking, okay, so this fits together. And we have a smaller, I mean, we have a small company, 16 dancers, which is sort of small, medium, depending on, yeah. Um, and casting is always an issue, trying to make sure I can do this, but then, I really like the program to flow. I really don't like a lot of bumps. I'm into making sure, and I'm also into making sure that the audience receives, like you said, Michael, a full feast in one evening, whatever that is. And maybe you can't do everything, but a very, very satisfying evening of movement, dance, and we want to touch them. They need to leave the theater different than the time they walked in. I know that's a huge order, but I do think that, I've been seeing a lot of dance recently. I've been really impressed with companies and the way that the pieces are coming across the footlights to the audience. I feel we're in a very expressive moment in dance. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's just my assessment. And I really do feel that people want to give. And it could be that we're in this, elevated world that we're in. And I think that people are really, the choreographers, the dancers, I think they're really ready to give generosity.
It's interesting maybe to stay with the dancers for a bit, because I think that that the technical level of dancers today is, I'm blown away by it. And as you say, they can do everything. But at the same time, that's the means, not the end, right? And so in looking at programming, and I guess I'm thinking about, Janet and Michael, you have so many decades of choices to include in there. And Dwight, your work has been so varied over the years, but it is dealing with these, intense emotions and narratives sometimes, or that. So how do you, I guess I'm interested to hear in each of your companies kind of how you're supporting the dancers to be able to embrace and to really be expressive in a way that can touch their audiences. And I do find in general, and it's a good thing for the world of dance, that there is, a more of a sense of responsibility on the part of companies to be there to support the dancers' well-being and and all of their needs, physical, intellectual, emotional. So yeah, Janet, I want to hand it over to you.
Yeah, for starters, dancers who come to the Martha Graham Dance Company, by the time they reach the professional level needed for our company, they've come because they are attracted to the idea of bringing their personal sense of self and expression to the stage. They want to be dancing the Martha Graham characters. They want the Graham technique, the whole Graham ethos is about expressing yourself through her language, which is basically the theatricalization of body language. It's the way we all unconsciously express ourselves. So our dancers are, if they're company ready, they are there because they want to bring themselves to the stage, bring their own, and this was what Martha expected, totally. She would catch you if you had some kind of facade up, or if you were doing something you thought was particularly pretty. She would catch you. She would say, you're hiding, you're lying. She wanted to drop the facade and bring your deepest vulnerability, your wildest passions, your desire, your anger. Bring yourself to the table 100%. So our dancers are attracted to opening themselves up to the moment. And how do we support that? We support that in rehearsal by bringing generations of Graham dancers in to coach and to bring them to the moment. They do their homework. If they're going to dance Medea, they've read everything about Medea. They've watched generations of Graham dancers in that role. And it's just part of our work in the studios, that emotion, bringing your highest emotional levels into our work is expected and desired. And besides that, our dancers have full health insurance. And if they need support mentally or physically, part of our contract with our dancers is, they have that health insurance.
Yeah, which is
Unusual.
so unusual and so crucial
Mhm.
in the country now, and so
Mm.
important. Yeah, Michael, tell us about your dancers and
It's very similar to what Janet was talking about. We have an extensive archive of videos that go way back, and engaging with original cast members is essential. I often find that not just steps and counts, but stories are fuel for the artist. What was the temperature like in the room? What was Paul doing? What was the conversation that was being had? He was in a really bad mood that day when he made this dance, or he was in a great, like all those little things actually give a lot of context. Then when you watch the dancer who made that part make the part. We try to be very sensitive, and I know Paul was as well, that he would modify and change things to the person who was performing it. He was very interested in the individual. Modern dance is incredibly democratic in the sense that this is about an individual's expression, not the, imperial state. This is who are you? And Paul would find a way to pull that out. And while the dance might be the same, he would find these ways, along with our rehearsal directors, to make sure that you still, were exposed in a beautiful way. And so I lean into that heavily. Where are you? Are you hiding? The other thing that I think I've learned over time is that there's a point in the artistic process where the dance needs to teach them their lessons, not just us. So there's a moment where you give it to the dancer and you're like, I've given you everything that I know, everyone in the front of the room here, but you need to live in the work. And then in the living in the work, that will change you if you're open to it. But I give permission to, like, we're going to go on this road, we're going to go on this tour. Like, I'm not going to give you notes for maybe 2 or 3 stops, unless something's a safety issue, or lighting or whatnot. But like, live in the world. Let the world start to inform what your impulses should be, how you should respond if something is different. Like, let that be a lesson, too. So giving that space is important to me as director.
yeah, I love that, of the way that the coaching and the mentoring is there, and then there's a moment where it's the dancer's responsibility, right, to sort of find themselves and find new meanings within that work. So Dwight, so you have been the principal choreographer so tell us about how that works, and what's it like approaching something that you made, maybe that you're going to be showing again. What is the
Well, I'm very much the choreographer that really I change everything, like to fit the dancer in front of me immediately. And that's my instinct. That's how, like today, it even happened. I had a brief rehearsal this morning. We're making something, and someone went into another role, and I just started morphing the role. The role has been around for almost 30 years, 29 years. This is an old piece. And some of the alumni also were like, well, what do you know? It wasn't like, I was like, well, it's gonna be like that for this person because I just find, and I definitely don't want to lose the point or the direction of the work. You don't want to go too far, but minor little changes. I really like to celebrate the individual within the company, and Complexions is kind of all about that. There's not one dancer that's alike. And we're not looking for that. We're actually looking for the counter to that, which is we really want everyone to be individual. And isn't that a change, guys? Isn't that such a change in way it used to be, sort of, trying to find that uniformity? And I find that a lot of directors are looking for that, that those kinds of differences as well. Try to support the dancers as much as you can. I try to support the dancers as much as I can by number one, being present, being with them, and being available. I like to have a lot of conversations with my dancers about a role. I'm always pushing them. They know when they see me walking over to them, here I come again with more push. And it's not always about more. It might be just quite frankly, you might be missing the point, or
Hmm.
how about this choice? Try it for a moment. Let's see what happens. I don't want it to be my choice always. I want them to find it on their own. But in the interest of time, sometimes you want to just go ahead.
Yeah.
Try this. Try this. And we also bring back, and I pale in comparison to these giants I'm on screen with right now in terms of the amount of time we've been around, 3 decades, 31 and 31 years. So we do have our alumni come back. I am such a believer in having the people that were here. I want that sense of continuity, that family, that, you know what I mean? It's just really important. Even though Desmond and I are still alive and we're still in the room,
Yeah.
we want to be flanked with the people who help us make this
Yeah.
the past.
The essence of dance, I mean, it's always been, an oral tradition, one generation passing it on to the next. And as video has gotten less expensive and, we can just pass things on our phone, basically, there's still that element that you want the family generations to come back and pass on the legacy, the good stuff that's in there. And Dwight, if it makes you feel any better, Martha used to change choreography for different dancers too.
Oh,
Oh
good.
yeah.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely.
No, it was.
Absolutely.
That's what
And
Paul
people
did
were
too,
kind of like, wait
Martha.
a minute, you can't change Night Journey. And then she was like, what do
Well,
you mean?
what's funny, what's really funny in terms of supporting the dancers is when you give them access to videos from like 1975 to present day, and you're like, okay, there's like 15 videos, and they're doing their homework, right? And they're like, okay, do you want 88, 89, 2000, 2002, 2000, like, and like being like, okay, so we're going to focus on 2005, as artistic director, I think that was the best synthesis of what I'm looking for. But there's pretty much a video to defend any argument about what it was. Um,
Right.
and one of the things that I've been doing recently with changes, because it can get passionate, I'll say, is that when original cast members come back and they look at the dance in its present form, and they're like, that's not what it was. It was a change. Why did it change? When did it change? And so now what I'm doing is when those types of conversations happen, I go back and I track the change through every video that we have. And I try to pinpoint when it changed. The reason being is that the earlier the change happened, the more likely it was Paul that made it.
Mm.
The later towards Paul's career, the more likely it was that venue. It could have been an injury. We don't quite know. But so I'm constantly being the mediator of how a piece premiered, how it's evolved, where was Paul in that conversation, and then what do we do in the present day? And with that family and that culture, you also get a lot of passions about where that needle needs to sit. It's very exciting, actually.
It's fascinating that behind all of those changes that happen to choreography, that there's these like hidden histories of what actually prompted it, and I don't know why, and it can be the same with audiences too, of this like desire for an original text, which rarely, as you're saying, exists in, I mean, Shakespeare. People go, where's the definitive Hamlet? And it's like, there is none, because it was being changed all the time. And that is so. Does the fact that that's the way that it is give you all a sense of freedom, to kind of to innovate and look at the way that you're approaching these choreographies and new choreographies? And I guess the other thing that I wanted to throw in there is, because we were talking about like video being accessible and whatever, but how are you all using technology and sort of digital capacities
Mm,
and all of that? How's that changed your worlds?
Definitely changed our world quite a bit. I mean,
yeah.
as we're remounting, we're just getting into the season now. You see, as we're remounting, every dancer has their phone out, pulled up on our site with the videos, and they're learning their parts. So the room is Now, do I love this? Maybe not, but it's a way to get things done. And I love the fact that they're doing their homework and, we only have so many computers in the room. So for me, it's great, but I do at some point want you to put the phone down and really, embrace the movement, the moment, and let's get past that video moment and kind of dig in. And they do, and they do. And I also want, just to your point, more conversations. A lot of times, we have to prompt dancers to really go ahead and tell me what you're thinking. Tell me how you feel about this moment. Tell me what your struggle is. But again, that's me. I want to hear, I like a dialogue with the performer. It's not, if I'm making something for you, I want to be able to, have a little one back and forth with you as we're doing it. Particularly because I work very individual around the room. So I love that part. And I think it's really important, but technology is huge. We do everything on an app. That's where everything is for the rehearsal. And then, like I said, that's how we remount works.
Yeah, so huge changes.
In addition to the person being in the room that might have done the role or the repetitor who can reset it. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Michael and Janet, I'd like to hear more about, technology and, oh my God, what's AI going to do to the world of dance as we go forward, Yeah. So
we're trying to embrace change as fast as we can, because it seems like technology is by the time you've gotten your head around something, it's already something else. Our dancers are leading the charge in terms of using technology on stage. We premiered a work at the Joyce this past April, created by our beautiful dancer Xin Ying, that she had created with the idea of how does a generation of dancers who never met Martha Graham embody her legacy. And she used AI to manipulate a film of Martha dancing so that Ying was able to dance with Martha.
Oh, wow.
In this piece. So things like that. We're also working on enhancing and enlivening our archives by creating a Martha bot, where everything we know about Martha Graham, what she has written and what she said, interviews, etc., is loaded into this bot so that you can type in a question and Martha will answer it. It's just in its sort of formative stages at the moment. It's kind of like a party trick, but we see it as a very interactive way to be able to access what's in our archives eventually.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I love that. Wow.
It's pretty cool,
It's a treasure trove. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there. We reconstructed a dance from 1969 called Churchyard at the Joyce recently, and the footage is very, very bad. So we fed it through a AI software program to see if it could help reduce some of the static, or if it could help illuminate, what was kind of just improve the quality of the video. It was great for patterns, but not for gesture. And we saw a lot of hands, a lot of like little things were lost. So we ended up dropping it, but we tried it. We've done a couple collaborations with universities who are studying biomechanics. A lot of these universities that have heavy funding in sports are usually doing all this biomechanical technology readings on athletes. But athletes have a very specific, I'll call it kinetic spatial relationship. So we have been going to universities where they've actually put all of these sensors on dancers, and the dancers are kind of throwing the software off because the software has gotten so used to predicting how athletes move. So simple things like flexibility, spirals, the machine had to learn how to receive all of that data. So the notion of dance stepping in to actually expand, what this software is actually able to perceive. The spirals, for some reason, in a lot of this software is very hard for computers to understand.
Hmm.
It
That's
seems to just like flip.
mind-blowing.
Like, no, it's a spiral. It doesn't just flip on itself. So
Wow. Wow. What dancers can teach artificial intelligence and technology. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been having some incredible insights about, looking back and works from the past and how you've all embraced them. What do you your responsibility as artistic directors to look very far into the future and make sure that these incredible legacies, that these years and years are maintained. So tell me thoughts about what you're thinking about and imagining for the long term for your companies.
In terms of securing the legacy with, so that the dances are able to be reconstructed in the future.
Yeah, or even just sort of mission and aims and
mm,
kind of, and how you're thinking about, all of the different challenges and opportunities of sustaining it for this much longer, as you're going forward. So just be curious to see, what you're thinking about ensuring that these companies are going to prosper and grow for the long term at a moment of, of incredible change and kind of unpredictability to a certain extent, I guess, too.
Well, I'll start off with one thing to think about. Modern dance is a young art form, one of the youngest. I would say it emerged about the same time as American jazz. And in terms of when I took over as artistic director, we really didn't admit that we had a past. Modern dance is
mm,
all about revolution, all about what's next, all about this generation rejecting what the last generation had done and moving into the future. So audiences, funders, the field itself was trained to only appreciate the new. And as the art form turned about 100 years old, we had to start asking, well, what about all that good stuff back in the 20th century? How do
yeah.
we honor our past? When I took over as artistic director, modern dance did not use the word classic. We didn't have classics.
Mhm.
So it's really been behooved the field at large to begin to understand our past and celebrate our past, as well as being revolutionary and innovative and moving into the future. I know in the beginning, took a lot of cues from other art forms. Asked what museums do. What does the opera do? What does, there other art forms have figured out a way to enliven their legacy, their classic works. And we took super titles from the opera. We do like an audio tour from museums. All of our performances now have a spoken introduction, just to help the audience, give the audience a few things to look for, give them some context to the classic works, give them some context to how we've curated the program, how the classic works are in conversation with the new works. So I think it's sort of a field-wide effort to kind of celebrate, embrace, honor our past at the same time we all move forward.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, it goes into just to take that further, dance literacy has been something that we've been laser focused on within our educational offerings, and how we talk about dance, how we talk about visual art, how we talk about the intersection of all the arts coming together. And we recently had a major expansion, a 23,000 square foot expansion into Midtown, where we're rethinking what dance education looks like. And Dwight, to your earlier point about like the silos need to go away, and they have been, this new generation that's coming in and they're like, I'm taking class with everybody. And so what does that mean when you shift from like learning Paul Taylor all the time? Thank
Mhm.
you. Wonderful. Got our legacy to where we are today. And now, what does a space for dance learning for professionals actually look like? How interdisciplinary is it? How somatic is it?
Mhm.
There's a huge movement in our industry now, just as a side note, about outside of like what I would call like Western classical training, like there's Pilates, there's gyrokinesis, there's gyrotonics, there's yoga, there's this whole notion of functional fitness as a precursor to technique. So there's this movement that's happening that it's being driven by several generations, but the younger generation expects wellness to be integrated into their training. So we're looking at that, how to talk about our art form. But the other thing I'm focused on when I look to the future is giving choreographers a home. Throughout the 90s and the 2000s, there was this kind of revolving door where choreographers would come in, they'd have 60, 70, 80, 90 hours, and everyone would expect a masterpiece. And then they would go to the next company, and then a new choreographer would come in, and then they get their hours. And after a while, I started to think the risks that Paul could take, and Martha, and Balanchine, and you, Dwight, is because you get to know who you're working with. You get to start to understand them more, and then you can push them, and they can push you. But that's what moves the art form forward. So I'm shifting us away from this kind of open commissioning model into two resident choreographers, Lauren Lovett and Robert Battle, full-time, full benefits. Their job is to be there and to make art consistently. So that's kind of bucking the trend of what we've been doing in the past. But I think if we're going to move the art form forward, the dance makers need to get priority in terms of like the job is to show up, not worry about anything else. Know the artist that you're working with, interpret the culture, the moment that we're in, and have the space to try to take risks. You're not going to take a lot of risks if like you have one shot at a piece. You're going to want to try to hit it out of the park, so maybe you're invited back again. But if you have 5 or 6 pieces lined up, you can calculate where you really want to push something. If it doesn't work, so what? But you've actually learned lessons from it. And you never know what the next piece is going to be as a consequence of taking a risk on something. So I'm really advocating for creation and kind of rethinking how we create.
That's
That is
beautiful.
awesome. Yeah, and thank you for doing that for choreographers, because this is a plight that I have. Young choreographers need opportunity. It's still really hard to get your work in front of the people who you want to see it. We started this past year something called a Choreo Lab, and it was our way to have, it's like a 2-week time. It's very short because this is what we could do at this time. 2 weeks with the dancers. The idea does not have to be completely fleshed out, doesn't have to be finished. We'll do a showing, a sharing, really, with what you did for 2 weeks. And that has become the entryway where we bring in choreographers. It happens usually at the end of a season, so that throughout the summer we make our, well, we've already kind of made our decisions, but we're looking at, because we invite them in, and then they do a work for the company. And that has been so gratifying to me as a choreographer who understands. And back in the day when you had those big VHS tapes and you had to put them, you had to send them overseas. I was trying to get people to see the work. And it's just not easy. It seems like it would be easier, it's easier to actually, email it and you can get stream it or whatever it is that we do. You can get it to the people that you want to see it easier, but it's still not always easy for you to be seen and be considered for work. On the other note, about some lofty goals, my company is still a nomadic company. We do not have our home or a space. So one of our big goals, Desmond and I are really, working hard on this, is to have a home. And the company really needs one at this point. We've had an academy for 20 years that is mobile and full most times, throughout the year. So we're so lucky because education is so big anyway for what it is that we do. And so that's like a really big goal. And the last thing I'll say is that we've also been looking at what happens after we can't do this anymore when we're sitting in these seats. We've appointed 2 associate directors this year, 2 very, very good, who are doing fabulous job. we are already thinking about succession, but it's not about disappearing. I hope that I'm still around when someone else is actually running this company and I can witness it from a different vantage point, you know, so I think that, you know, those are some of the goals for us. A home.
Mhm.
I want something for these young choreographers. I want something even bigger than Choreo Lab so that they can. I love what you're doing, Michael. That is so great for choreographers. And I like the fact that, even speaking for myself, you know, to go somewhere, you start to learn them after piece one, like you said, and then, oh, well, I'm going to be doing another. And then you can really get in there, you know, you learn the artist, and that is just remarkable. I'm so happy to hear that's happening. Yeah.
One last question, because unbelievably, we've got to wrap up pretty soon, although we could talk about this for weeks on end. But I'm sure in our audience here that we have a lot of young artists and young dancers, and maybe some aspiring artistic directors. What advice would you give, you know, aspiring artistic directors about some of the skills or attributes that they should be cultivating to help them step into, you know, lofty shoes of artistic directors like the three of you?
I would say my job is, I'll say 75% psychology. What inspires people? What's holding them back? And I'm not talking just artists. I'm talking board members. I'm talking patrons. I'm talking presenters, people who run foundations that give us money. Where are they at? What are they thinking? What are they interested in? What's motivating them? And then how do you find that out? Because not everyone's transparent about that. How do you dig that out? And then how do you inspire them with what you're doing? And how do you marry that? I don't think it's sales. It's not sales. It's actually a genuine investment in trying to understand where someone is and where they're coming from and what would make them be inspired by what it is your mission is. Um, I think spreadsheets you'll figure out. There are Excel courses for that. You know, you'll figure out like the difference between like you can learn all the dance things. I think getting to know people, especially in this state of philanthropy right now, where it's largely being driven by individuals, not government or foundation support, your patrons are people. And so the focus on how you're connecting with individuals, whether it's in the studio or in the boardroom, is so, so, so important.
It's really, really helpful. Janet, what
Oh
what
boy.
would you offer?
My advice is to find your North Star, find the mission, the goal of the organization, and out of that, everything else falls into line. I mean, early on, talking about this dilemma that the field did not embrace its past, I realized that I was taking over a company that had been led by a genius, that the world, she was like a goddess on a mountaintop and the world would come to her. And without her, we had to figure out a way to come down off the mountaintop, how to reach audiences, how to engage audiences. And we began to look at other art forms. And the North Star really became, how do we open more doors? How do we invite audiences in? How do we find new ways to engage? This includes even the AI piece we presented at the Joyce and the Martha Bot, and it's really finding that one directive that is behind the dancers that I hire. That, you know, the openness, the willingness to engage, the willingness to embrace change, and you know, meet with our audiences, connect with our audiences on stage and off. The way I curate programs, our spoken introductions, so that audiences don't feel like it's a secret club that they're not invited into. So for anyone considering going in this direction, I think you really have to find that element that is of the utmost importance to the artistry and the survival of your company.
Great, Dwight.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I was so fortunate enough to experience is I experienced, the Martha Graham technique. I experienced Paul Taylor technique. I experienced all the experiences I had with Alvin, these greats. And, everything wasn't perfect. And realizing that as a director, you are a human being. And I think one of the things that I've learned in this job, and I just learned on my feet, I literally came off the stage and started. There's no real school for it. But one of the things that has taught me more than anything is patience. And the other thing is I don't listen to the noise. There's a lot of noise in our industry, and I'm just really, really laser focused. I'm just saying what worked for me. I'm not saying I don't know that this will work for everyone, but I do think that it is something that you should try. Really focusing on what it is that's important. What is it that you're doing? How do you keep doing it? And then when it comes to like the donors and the philanthropists, the support system around you, that's a whole nother network that you must be cognizant in. It's not an easy job. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's also super gratifying, but hard.
Yeah.
And, there are no black, white answers all the time. Sometimes it's this, sometimes you have to massage a little bit to get this to work. And maybe this time you won't get everything that you want, but guess what? Maybe there's 2 seasons down the road, I'm going to do this the way I really want to do it. So it's planning, trusting your vision, and not letting up on your focus. Kind of like what we do as dancers, is it not?
That's
No.
true. Yeah. Well, I am so really sincerely grateful. You have all been so generous in sharing your incredibly rich experiences. I think this is some that advice that you gave is precious, really, and will be well received. For our viewers, I also wanted to let you know that all 3 of these amazing people have agreed to speak with me again. So more to come. Watch this space. We've got links to the Musco Center website where you can buy tickets to the Maribel Musco Contemporary Dance Series. Thank you all so much for being part of that. It is just going to be spectacular. We're really excited about it, and look forward to continuing the conversation. And thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Anne.
you.
I wish I could see the whole season and
Me too.
every
I'll have to
couple-
fly out.
Yeah.
Direct flights from New York City to Orange County here, we'll have to,
Great,
as if you
great.
all don't have anything going on.
Great to
Thanks,
be with
everyone.
you all.
Great.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.